from what I understand, the players have given three kind of, what's the word I'm after? They've given three demands, the players, to the WRU, that they want sorting by Wednesday, otherwise they go on strike. So Wednesday's the big day. Obviously, we're recording on a Monday. It comes out on Tuesday, so we won't have the information till it all comes out. But they want the 60 cap rule abolished, which I fully understand. When you've got no one in Wales being able to sign a contract past July 1st next year, who knows what the hell's going on. They need that rule abolishing. There's something in their contracts where they're only guaranteed 80% of their value of the contract, which they want taken out as well, which, you know, from a player's perspective is the right thing to do. You want to know what you're guaranteed to earn, and you can't be signing a contract, argument's sake, oh, here's a contract for 100 grand, but you might only get 80. No. That's not how it works. And obviously the numbers are going to be very different for each individual. And then what was the and then the third one is getting a voice on the board in terms of the decision-making process around the professional game in Wales. So 3 demands. The WRU would be absolutely crazy, stupid, ridiculous, call them anything you want, to not agree to those 3 things. Let's not forget, it is a game about the players, and ultimately if they do go on strike this weekend, it will cost the WRU about 10 million quid by all accounts, and the reputational damage around missing a Six Nations game and everything that goes with that. The WRU have got themselves in absolute knots here, and poor management, ridiculous leaving it so late to sign the deal to get the funding for the 4 regions, which leaves the players in limbo, and it's an absolute disgrace. But hey, this is rugby union at the minute. It's run by cowboys, and none more so than in Wales.
It is horrible. And I listened to Alan Wynne-Jones and Warren Gatland's press conference, and one thing, I wish Alan Wynne-Jones went a bit harder. One thing that he kept repeating and reiterating was, I know there's a cost of living crisis. I know that other people have lost jobs. And he was very apologetic towards the media and the public that they're in this position. Mate, you don't need to be apologetic at all. Like, you're giving your body, you're giving your lives, not as in terms of life or death, but in terms of your whole being to the game of rugby, and you've got no idea what's going on. You're on a sinking ship. This isn't something that's just happened like that. You could feel it was coming, and Wales, being as successful as they were, without being horrible, has papered over the cracks of years gone by, and it's just come to a head, hasn't it? Like, there's a few things that Goody said there. The 60 cap rule has to go. There's no doubt about that now. Players, like with Scotland, we've got 2 pro teams, and we don't do it like that. And to be fair, I think the Premiership should do the same thing. I think players should be able to go and play wherever they want to play and earn as much money as they can, because it's a professional sport. It's a dangerous sport. But there's that part of it as well. But the whole thing needs a shake-up. You look at the attendances, and this will be the argument, right? Is like, how is it sustainable to pay some players £500,000 a year when you've got 2,000 people in a 40,000 seat stadium, Ospreys, or Scarlets, or Dragons?
I leave the Scarlets out of it. Don't be bitter about the Scarlets, because they absolutely battered Edinburgh at the weekend.
Well, how did they do that? Because you look at the other results from the other teams, and it's just caused complete pandemonium and mayhem. Scarlets dealt with it very well. For whatever reason, players deal with it in a different way, but it's beyond drama. It's like, it's so messy. I couldn't even imagine being in that situation. And some of the players are coming out that you read that are in the Wales camp, that they're taking antidepressants and stuff to get through this time. And, there's turmoil at home because people deal with it in different ways, right? Not everyone gets paid 6 figures, 100 grand a year, 150 grand, 200 grand. A lot of these players will be on 40, 50 grand a year, less. And they've got no idea what they're doing. Imagine going into a game. I don't know why I'm thinking a South African team. Imagine going down to South Africa to play against the Lions or the Bulls, and you're getting absolutely annihilated in the tackle. And then you get caught wrong, you rupture your ACL, you're out for a year. You imagine getting on that plane home, and you've got no idea.
Yeah, because you wouldn't get a contract then, would you?
You wouldn't get a contract. They'd be like, we can't contract you.
We're in this position because, and we're in it in England as well, and various different guises. Let's not forget, up in Scotland, you used to have the Borders, right, as well as a third team. Scotland made the tough decision at the time to say, hey, we can't afford this. And that really affected people in terms of their livelihoods and how that worked out. But it's what was best for Scotland in the long run, just to have two teams. Now, in Wales, they've been cashing cheques that they can't afford for years in terms of funding the four regions, and a lot of people have said, well, they should just bin off one of the regions. But then you're talking about livelihoods and jobs. An easy way to cut expense is to drop one of the regions. Of course it is. But then you're looking at the issues around how many people lose their jobs. Then we're looking at a Worcester and a Wasp scenario of all the people that have lost their jobs. And there is going to be, a lot of people affected however this pans out.
Looking at the WRU, can you guys see any glaring mistakes that they've made on the road to getting here that could have prevented this?
Well, look at the back office. Look at the stuff that's gone by over the last few months with the allegations of assault and sexual misconduct in the offices. So there's clearly some deep-rooted issues, right? Both culturally, historically, and it's rearing its head in all different ways, isn't it? So I'm not close enough to it to know what has really, really gone on. Obviously, you hear rumours. We know people that are involved in some of the teams and people high up and agents, and you hear all of these different things. But there's some deep-rooted issues, and the Welsh team being as successful as it has been has papered over them cracks, hasn't it? And saying it's messy is beyond. Like, as in, it's just so far beyond that, isn't it? I don't know. I know what Goody's saying about the regions. From where I look, and again, it's comfortable in my office. I've got a job. We do a podcast. Everything's all rosy. It's easy to say they need to get rid of a team or two or merge all the teams. But it looks like that's what they need to do. It just looks like they've just.
What do you mean, get rid of the Dragons, Jim? You're horrible.
I thought actually out of all of them, it looks like apart from them losing, they it seems the most sustainable one. I don't imagine their salary cap is that high. There's a nice little setup down at Rodney Parade. They've got a cool name in the Dragons.
Hold on. A nice little setup down at Rodney Parade. You're always berating it, going, who wants to go to Rodney Parade on a Friday, Saturday or Sunday?
No,
absolutely no one.
But there are some people that live next to the chip shop opposite that love it there. So when we were younger, Goody, mate, used to be scared going to Wales back in the day, playing like the likes of like Pontypool and Bridgend, like proper club teams, like hard Welsh, well followed lads from the valleys, from the farms, from the coal mines, like that kind of old historic thing that you think about with Welsh rugby. And having spent a bit of time, Goody, obviously with James Hook, we've done a few interviews with him. I've spent some time with a few of the Welsh lads down there, chatting to Tom Shanklin. That foundation and that heartbeat of Wales, it's gone. And Scott Quinnell as well, when you hear him talk about it so passionately, what a shame. Yeah. What a shame. And that comes to my point. So back in the day where you had Neath and Swansea, two of the fiercest rivals, and someone's decided to merge them and call them the Ospreys. I mean, it might have seemed a good idea. I think there needs to be a tribalism in sport, in rugby, and I have ideas of what I would do in terms of having 10 top teams in the UK and Ireland.
Take out the scrum.
What central contract.
What a nose. I think the scrum, Andrew, take it out of the game.
That's not a nose, Andrew. You're a nose by saying that because you are a traditionalist.
Mate.
And it's not about name calling.
You like rugby league, go and play rugby league, son.
We'll get onto that. We'll get onto it because of the way that social media reacts and people being horrible to me and then saying that they don't like my wife Beck and stuff. But I'll just finish on the Welsh thing. I'll just finish on that. The fact that it's a shame that it's gone deeply, deeply wrong somewhere. I don't know whether this game at the weekend, this game, one of the biggest games on the calendar of any game. Does it go ahead at the weekend? It might scrape through, but is that going to change it? It's not. Something big needs to happen, and it's not for me to say I have my opinion, but I'm comfortable sat here with a job in my office at home or when we're in the studio doing the podcast, and people's lives are affected by it. It's tragic. I
think the bottom line is they've got to save money. They've got to cut costs somewhere. Where they've made the big errors is leaving it to the last minute to get everything agreed. Like, they should have been doing this 2 or 3 years before the agreement was up. And so, I know we had the pandemic and it's been difficult to plan certain things, but leaving it to the absolute last minute. It's probably a massive amount of arrogance saying, well, this is what it is, to deal with it from the WRU. And that's not how you negotiate. That's not how you get loyalty from your players and look after, ultimately, the most important people are everyone that you employ, the WRU, whether that's a player, a member of staff at any of the clubs that are trying effectively to make the game in Wales as good as it can be and improve it, day on day at each region to benefit the WRU and the Welsh team. So it's madness. But as we've said, and you go back to Will Carling many years ago where he said the RFU was run by 57 old farts. I think it's even more now. I think there's probably a few more than 57, and it's across the board at the RFU, at the WRU. NZRU, there you go, Andy Rue.
Not the SRU.
Not the SRU,
right.
yeah.
Now we're doing all right. Now we're doing all right, mate.
Jim's employed by them now, so that's why he's changed his tune. So, but and this is where we're at in terms of World Rugby and everything that we've talked about previously. Nothing's ever happened, has it?
Well, we can get an inside track on what is going on across the Severn Bridge now. Wales legend Jonathan Davies joins us. How are you, mate?
I'm good. I think I'm glad I've retired with all this hassle going on.
Jiffy, great to have you on. First question, is there going to be a game this week? What do you know? Because we're ready. England are coming to town, but there might not be a Welsh team to play against.
Oh, no, I don't think anyone knows unless you're around the table if it's on or not. It's a serious threat, and, it's a well-timed threat, really. It's the biggest earner for the WRU. The players know that. How that's going to, have a knock-on effect if the game doesn't go on, to the regions and their finances, I'm not sure. But I just feel that it's a decision they all came to, and they had to do it, because it's a scandalous position to be in. You can't expect players, to perform when they've been promised finances to be sorted. I think it was pre-Christmas or whatever, and they're still in a situation. I think it was highlighted by young, Jack Dixon of the Dragons. He went off injured. I think he's up for contract renewal, and his confidence must be shattered, and he's worried because who's going to sign a guy who's injured? I suppose it makes it harder. So they're serious about it, and hopefully, they can get on the table and get it sorted ASAP, really. So, because everybody wants the game to go ahead, and I'm sure all the players would. But unfortunately, they've been caught up in this situation, and it's not a great reflection on Welsh Rugby and the WRU, and they've had a kind of a disastrous last couple of months.
And from the WRU's perspective, I try and look at things normally from both sides. I'm 100% behind the players here in terms of what they're asking for, which I don't think is too much, especially the three things they're sort of trying to get pushed through before they call off the strike. But from the WRU's perspective, we know the game, and two of my clubs have gone bust. Two of my old clubs in Worcester and Wasps have gone bust, and they're pretty much gone for years to come now in terms of playing at the top level. From the WRU's perspective, and we've got to look at it from both sides, what's your take on it from someone that's at the heart of rugby in Wales, has been for years, and understands both sides of the coin, I'd say?
Yeah, I can understand. I think, Andy, the problem is the union don't trust the regions don't trust the union, and in fact, I don't think the regions trust each other. So that's always been an issue. When you've got kind of 5 parts to this, they should work in harmony, for everyone to get better, because they need the grassroots, they need the regions, and then all of a sudden you've got Wales. Okay, so for me, I just think that it's the union's fault that it's come to this. I think they had to try and nail it down, ASAP. And I can understand that maybe the regions have squandered the money. I do think that players across the board now, not only in Wales, I think they've got to look at players' salaries. When you get clubs like Worcester and Wasp going through, then you've had Leicester, they needed a cash injection, didn't they? It's not sustainable. So, they've got to look at contracts, and players will go, oh yeah, but why are we taking a cut? Because for the longevity of the game, they have to and have realistic kind of salaries. And I don't know how that's going to work, whether they go anyone on existing contracts, you see that out, and then from when your contract's up, then you've got to look at realistic salaries. So what they need first and foremost is a trust between the lot of them. And then from there on, but if I don't even know what Gatland's going to be doing. Is he staying? Is he going to be a rugby director? But what influence is he going to have over the regions the regions won't want him to come in because he's an union rep. So this is an opportunity for me to have total reform. On finances, on the rugby, on the culture in the WRU. You need a CEO to run the business, and you need either a CEO or director of rugby to run the rugby, because we've been failing the youngsters. I'm looking at it now, and we haven't got strength in depth in anybody. And I do blame, coaching at the lower level. When you get to a region standard, first class standard, you shouldn't have to be taught how to pass or how to kick or which tackle to use in a tackle. So I think we've failed the youngsters coming through as well, because we've neglected, the finances at grassroots and age group rugby.
Watching the interviews last week, the press conference with Warren Gatland and Alan Wynne-Jones, maybe I've read it wrong from what I saw, or I'm reading between the lines, but it looked like Gats was really frustrated with the situation, obviously, but it seemed like there was a frustration with Alan Wynne-Jones and the players. Is there a bit of a split or a divide, do you think, between the coaches and the players, or not? Did I read it wrong?
He's not in a good position, and maybe he shouldn't have said the things that he said, because no matter how you say it or what you say, people are going to read into it differently. Some people are going to go, "Oh, he doesn't support the players. He's not cutting his salary." But I think he's sympathising with the players to be in this position. But unfortunately, his role is to get the best team on the pitch on Saturday against England, the biggest game. So, he's caught in a very, very difficult position. I think he's a player's man, I think. So I think he supports everything the players do, but he's caught up because the union are paying him. So it's a very difficult situation for him to try and keep, everyone happy.
Yeah, it's really difficult. And one of the ones I want to ask you about, it's come out today. You mentioned about the young lads and failing the youth coming through. One of your brightest stars, Joe Hawkins, has just signed for Exeter Chiefs, and that's been announced. How does that sit? Because ultimately, is that all purely to do with the lack of a deal being struck and him being able to sign a deal with the Ospreys?
He's had a contract. He supposed he must be at a contract in May. He's playing for Wales. His stock is high. If the Ospreys, I'm sure the Ospreys didn't want him to go, because they brought him through, but all of a sudden, because of the situation he's under financially, he's got to look after himself. And you're going to go, right, if they do scrap the 60 cap rule, he goes over there, he can play anyway. So it's all about timing. If you've got another year to go to your contract, it's not too bad, because it should get sorted. I know, saying that, it should get sorted. But you'd be okay. The thing is, it's got to have a little bit of common sense on the finances of the game, because I just think that they've had a good time. The players have done well out of it, and rightly so, because, if I was a player, I'd want to get as much as I could. But looking at it realistically, I moved on when I was playing for Widnes, because I was... They went into administration. They said, "Look, Jeff, we can't afford you. You've got to go." So I said, "Right, okay." All of a sudden, look at another club, and off I went. So it does happen in sport.
When you look at the regions, and I'm going to pick one out in particular, Jiffy, Ospreys, do you think they'll be around in 2-4 years' time? And I say the Ospreys because they were so big, and I look at the lack of crowd for such a big team. I just don't know how that's sustainable.
No, if you look at the 60 cap rule, if you get the finances and have a plan, then you can have the benefactors come in and say, okay, look, the benefactors can maybe buy two marquee players forward and the back. I don't know, but you've got to look at it at everything and see where they are. The Ospreys maybe are the more vulnerable, because you've got Llanelli, which covers all of West and kind of North Wales. Then you've got Cardiff, the capital city. The Dragons are owned by WRU. That's another story. And then, so the Ospreys, they've been they've been a proper region, I suppose. They've been Neath and Swansea and Maesteg and Bridgend and Aberafan. And they would look at the most vulnerable, maybe, if they cut them down to 3. But then saying that, the union could say, look, get rid of Dragons. And are they going to cut it to 3? Are they going to keep it to 4? Are they just going to get East and West Wales? It's all, unless you round that table and you've got the finances and everything in front of you, and work out what's best for everyone. I think it's very, very difficult to kind of to guess what's going to happen.
What would Jiffy do? That's the question.
I'd like to keep 4, right? Because I think there's enough talent in Wales. I'd like to keep 4. If they cut it to 3 or 2, then the Premiership has to really be looked at. You've got the Premiership, which is the jewel. They've said the jewel in the crown. It's just been a waste of time. They don't know what they're doing. Do they want to win it? Is it for development, or the young players aren't getting enough games? We'll check them in the Premiership. So you have to look at it and say, right, what's best for rugby? How do we develop the youngsters? How do we play them? And then what? But I still think there's enough talent in Wales for 4 teams, but it all depends on the finances.
Pod.
Rugby Pod.